What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the MTG Thoughtcast. I'm your host, Joseph. My co-host, John, and my co-host, Jared, are here with me. And today, we are talking about maybe something a little touchy, maybe something a little, whatever. But we're going to talk about the etiquette of talking about the power level of your decks and how to match those power levels properly with strangers or your play group so that you just have better games, because we all like having better games. So why don't we talk about and have some transparency with our decks and how to match those up properly. So before we get into it, John, Jared, how are you guys doing today?
Dude, I'm actually tired as heck. I'm doing great. I didn't even sleep last night.
At all?
No, I made the grave error of drinking a shot of espresso at 4 p.m. So I have been up since 4:40 a.m. yesterday.
He's a tired boy, but he's here.
Wow.
I'm crushing it. I'm excited to be here. I'm having a great time, but I am
John?
definitely a little sleep deprived.
Trucking it through. Yeah. I mean, I'm feeling similar, honestly. It's been a very early day for me as well. Early work shift today, but we're here, we're vibing, we're good. Let's get controversial.
Let's do it.
Hey.
All right, before we actually dive into it, we have a little bit of upkeep we have to do. If you guys aren't a part of our Discord, link is in the description. It's where the real discussions happen. We talk about the episodes, we talk about spoilers, we share memes. It's the best place to be. So if you're not a part of it, it's free. Go there. There's other free ways to support the channel. If you guys want to subscribe, comment, like, turn the bell on. All of those things help get our videos in front of as many people as possible and keeps us going, and it makes us happy. So if you guys want to do that, all of that's available down below. Go ahead and hit those, come back up, and we'll start talking about power level in Commander. I feel like, as we've sort of mentioned, this is a bit of a controversial episode because if you notice anywhere online, there's a ton of discourse around whether you should have a pre-game conversation about your Commander games or not. Obviously, we're talking about casual Commander play here. If you're in a tournament or if you're anything that you've paid for or there are prizes on the line, don't talk about what you're doing beforehand. This is not what this episode is about. This is about, it's Friday night, you're getting together with the homies, you're playing some Commander, and you just don't want to have feel bads. So, a lot of people would call this Rule Zero. John, do you want to give us a brief explanation on what Rule Zero is?
Well, since it doesn't really have like a technical, like defined term, it's more just a like state of mind given when describing how like if you're teaching somebody about how to play the game, or you're explaining how to basically run Commander as a whole. And this can be kind of true across a variety of either formats or even just different games in general. If it's anything you do with a group of people and there's like variants or chants or ways to modify your play in different styles, having a pre-game discussion of like, hey, this is what our expectation of what the game is going to be like and what some of us are playing, what some of us are comfortable with. That's kind of what Rule Zero is defined as, more or less. Just basically talking the group through of this is what we want to do, this is what we don't want to do.
Yes, it's exactly that. It's, the double-edged sword of what makes Magic such a great game is that everybody's in it for a different reason, and everybody likes doing different things and dislikes doing different things. So getting all of that straight before the game starts and before you even decide what Commander you're going to play or what deck you're going to play against each other, getting all of this in line first, I believe, and we've even seen happen on streams and games that we've played together where like it just ends up being so much better when everybody's wants, dislikes, all of that is in order before we start even shuffling. So that's what we're going to talk about a lot today is the quote unquote Rule Zero conversation, as well as how to assess the power level of your deck and, sort of the traditional way to God, I hit my mic. The traditional way to assess power level, and then what sort of my method of power level that I want to start using whenever we start streaming or whenever we start, playing more games. This will be our reference point going forward. So, Jared, I feel like you have a pretty good idea of how the power scale works, like sort of the traditional 1 to 10 power scale. Give me like a rundown of that.
Yeah, so in my head, let me just preface this by saying whenever you have this rule zero conversation and you use a 1 to 10 power scale, the number that you're going to get most is 7.
Yeah, it always ends up being 7.
Because people feel like 7 is somewhat powerful, but it's not overly powerful. Like if you say 8, people are going to get kind of like, whoa, okay, that's pretty strong. Like you're going to immediately get reactions with numbers above 7. I think the problem though is 7 is very different for everyone. 7 for someone who has just started playing Commander is going to look very different than someone who has been playing for a very long time, or just people that like different kind of strategies or play in different pods. There's like we've talked about my Torolf deck before on this channel. It is by no means a 7, but it can definitely feel like really strong. It is mono red. It can definitely whiff. It has Gamble as a tutor.
Yeah,
that's
what
the
you have
only
access
tutor
to.
in the deck. I guess that the other one that can fetch Soul Ring, and it's only in there to really get Soul Ring or Arcane Signet. But anyway, it's not looking for win cons. It's looking for mana rocks to just help me play the game. So that might be controversial. To me, it's not a 7. It's as good as a non-cEDH mono red deck can be, but I think that like also the color you're in has a lot to do with what your deck can be capable of, and mono red in casual Commander is inherently weak. So that said, it can still win on like turn 4 or 5, but it has to be like perfect, and no one is allowed to mess with me if that happens.
Right. So that kind of brings up the question of like, what is a 7 versus what's a 4 versus what's a 10, like all of these. And we've talked about this before. There is a great website called Commander Salt. We've shouted it out a million times. You can plug in like a Moxfield deck list, and it kind of tells you what your power level is relative to the cards that you have in. But the issue is like, I've never sat down with somebody and they were like, yeah, my deck's a 4.
Yeah, no, that's never going to happen.
There is no actual defined like how to like what number is your deck based on the cards that you're playing or based on what it is. So a lot of people have started using a turn-based scale where, oh yeah, I'm trying to win by turn 4, I'm trying to win by turn 7 or by turn 16 or whatever. And that is a great start, I think, on how to really start assessing what decks are going to be fair against each other. Because like you said, like John said too, like I have a Tivit deck that is cEDH. So if I'm playing Tivit against your Torolf, which Torolf is really powerful against everything below it, but it's going to lose to Tivit. But also, like, I don't have like Demonic Tutor in Tivit. So does that mean that it's not a 10? Does that mean that it is actually a 7 or an 8 or whatever? So I think if we want to just go into it, I would love to start breaking down what I think is a very fair scale on how to assess the power level of your deck.
Go for it.
Then we can kind of talk about how to have these conversations with your friends, strangers at the shop, whatever. But I don't think it has to be any more complicated than a 3-tier system. So we have A, B, and C tier, which I think respectively would be competitive. B tier would be powerful, and C tier would be casual. So any of those in those tiers should be able to stack up against each other really well. And then anything below that, like a D tier, would be like Precon or like our microbrew budget series, like
Jank.
all of those. What's that?
It's the jank tier.
It's the jank tier. But like if you were to pair an A tier versus a precon or whatever, like those are not going to be correctly balanced against each other, and it's probably going to win 99% of the time for the
It's going to feel bad for 3 out of 4 people, and it probably will feel bad for that 4th person too, because they're like,
no one talks about this, but it sucks being the most powerful deck at the table.
Yeah.
If you're not prepared for it.
Unless you're a jerk who likes pub stomping, that's lame. But
exactly. But I think that the different ways to kind of assess what tier you're in is based on what turn are you trying to set up your game-winning state in. That's the biggest one. Another one, and this is going to be the touchy topic, is the budget of your deck and how much money is in your deck, because that is a huge factor in like my $600 Tivit deck versus somebody's $80, upgraded precon. Like they might both be relatively powerful, but mine just has better cards in it that cost more money. And the joke is that the best card in Magic is the credit card. So
yeah.
So I would say let's just start at the bottom. We'll start at D tier, which I would say is precon comparable. So we're kind of in this world now where precons are $50 or sub $50. Or it's, some jank deck that has such niche cards that are all 12 cents, or are microbrews, which I love. Also, very important, none of these tiers are bad. It's not a bad thing to be building a budget deck or a $50, $25, whatever deck. Like, you can have so much fun. Pauper is an amazing format. Pauper Commander is really fun. What's the name for like Pauper Commander, but you get to use an uncommon as your commander?
Artisan,
yes. Great format, as long as everybody's on the same page with it. So those are great. And then casual decks, I would say, is C tier, where turn 7 to 9, you're trying to have your game-winning state set up. So you've spent quite a lot of time, especially in a 4-player game. That's like probably an hour into the game before turn 9. Mm-hmm. So these are pretty long games. I would say your budget for a casual deck would be somewhere between $100 and $200. Anything below that, and you start getting into the upgraded precon level. So casual deck, I would say you're running 0 tutors in a casual deck. So that's the first thing, is I'm not tutoring. My game plan is not going to be linear. I'm trying to draw into the things that I need to win the game. I would say that you have some card advantage, some cantrips or some niche card draw. You have some interaction. Maybe if you're playing a black deck, you're playing something like Hero's Downfall, 3 mana to kill a creature with no additional upside on it. I would say that's a casual staple. You probably have some type of a creature-based win con, whether that's a bunch of creatures that, combo together, work together to win your game, or combat-based creature-based.
Nice and old school. Just hit them until they die.
As Richard Garfield intended.
I feel like a lot of tribal falls into that. 100%. Right?
Like, I would say almost all tribal fits into casual decks.
It's why tribal is usually described as one of the best entry points for new people, because it doesn't take a lot of brain power to figure out how to make a tribal deck work. It's like, hey, pick your favorite creature type that you'd like to try to build around. Find your couple of lords and your other spells or sorceries or artifacts that care about that type specifically. Right.
Zombies go burr.
Yeah. I mean, I've been made fun of tons of before of, baby's first tribal of slivers. Slivers are not hard. No. You
play
take
slivers.
You take a sliver, the sliver does the sliver thing, and so forth and so forth.
Yeah. But do you think it's fair to call it a casual deck?
It depends.
Perhaps.
Right? It depends, right? Like, it depends how you build it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, again,
specifically the sliver tribe is like, right? That ceiling is high.
Probably the best.
Like, all right, how about one that would have a discussion back and forth? Goblins. Where would you fall goblins on that scale, right? Krenko can be a very competitive commander if built the right way, right?
That's fair.
Um,
Well, and this is why budget starts getting into this, because spirits, like my $25 spirits deck, is really powerful when it's paired up with other $25 decks. If you paired it up and just said all tribal decks are casual or all tribal decks are precon level, you paired it up against goblins or slivers, I'm getting steamrolled.
Mhm.
Like, there's no way.
Mhm.
So this is where budget comes into it. And there's a reason why slivers, goblins, those real elves, like
Oh, Elf Ball? Good
elf ball
lord.
is a cEDH deck. It can
Those,
be. Like,
That's the
Um,
Triforce of really strong tribes.
it really is. So, like, you can't, this is what I mean. You can't just loop all of these things into the same thing. So this is all just a template, but you're right. But the biggest difference between building a fully powered sliver deck versus a fully powered spirits deck is $250. Like,
Right.
you know what I mean?
Yeah, like, are you doing
Honestly,
like
it's more than that because I think that the sliver, whatever,
Oh, slivers are on the reserved list too. So,
or
like,
that the one that is the really powerful commanders. I
Yeah,
think
is
that
it
card is
Sliver
like
Queen?
$200 each. Yeah,
John, Sliverman. What is it?
Queen? Yeah, Queen's on the reserve list. It's about $300.
yeah, that card alone will break your budget.
Right.
Just the commander.
But it's also the best sliver commander.
Yeah, versus Brago,
Controversial.
who is the
Queen-
best spirit.
So Queen is the best sliver commander because it's the best combo one. If you're talking raw power, that goes to the first sliver or Sliver Legion, almost assuredly.
Which is the one with Cascade.
The first sliver.
Yeah. That one's strong. That's
Right.
also just a strong
And
non-sliver.
Legion is just coat of arms,
Yeah.
which is fantastic. So
Again, this is now
it depends
budget
on your
is a
build.
factor in this, where you can build a budget slivers deck that fits in C tier, or you can build the same slivers deck with more budget and it starts working its way up the tier list. So
Brago is $1.30.
Brago is also not the best spirit. Millicent
He's
is
not?
like 12 cents.
Shoot.
bite your tongue, sir. Brago is the best. Brago is the best friend, and you are going to need to take that back.
Just broke John's heart.
Immediately.
Oh my god. Okay, so moving on to what I would call the B tier, or a powerful deck that's not C. So it's in between casual and cEDH. We can try to figure out a label for this tier, but B tier, I would say you're trying to assemble your game-winning state between turns 5 and 7. So you spent the first 4 turns of your game ramping, drawing some cards, interacting, whatever it is, and then now turn 5 on is when you're trying to win the game. I would
So
say you're probably-
the label that I saw on the general like number scale is that somewhere along in this category is called focused. Where,
oh,
like,
that's amazing. This is
Yeah.
a focused deck.
sure. It's because like you're the kind of person that like you're in decks like these are in the what would you say it is like the box standard stapley stuff. You're into staples at that
Yeah.
point, but not the expensive staples, you know what
Right.
I mean?
Yes.
You're
know,
playing
I'd say
like
You're
the
you're-
Walmart version of
yeah,
the staple.
you're
Great
like
value.
yeah.
the staple we have at home versus
Yeah.
the cyclonic.
like
Yeah,
in,
you're playing Aetherize instead of Cyclonic Rift.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
mhm.
Um,
and this is in categories here is like where you're talking about it's like you're past like this is going into your upgraded beyond precon thing, right? Like maybe you've taken the shell of a precon and you know precons can sometimes be filled with some of these good things, but like you know you've replaced your Shape the Sands with Rapid Growth, you've replaced your Hedron Archives with Arcane, or well I guess Arcane Signet that comes in the decks now. You've replaced your 4 mana rocks with Worn Power Stone and Thran Dynamo and things like that, you know?
yes,
Uh,
exactly.
your card draw is better than Divination. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Man, you nailed it. I was going to say you're maybe playing 1 to 2 tutors. So you're playing things like Gamble. Maybe you're playing things like Grim Tutor or something like that are 3+ mana, but they're going to find you the card that you need. A little more niche. Your card advantage is stuff like Dig Through Time or Phyrexian Arena, where it's going to give you more value than like a divination would, but is still not at like Ristic Study, which we'll talk about in a second. You have cheap interaction, so like swords to plowshares, path to exile, that kind of stuff that's cheap but isn't quite free yet. You're probably doing some type of either a combo or a damage win con. We're starting to get out of the combat damage or like swinging a ton of creatures for most of the decks in this tier, I would say. You might be playing a Kiki Jiki combo that requires creatures in play, but is going to win through a combo. Or like Bruvac or something like this is going to be in the focused but not quite cEDH deck. And yeah, you're able to assemble a game-winning strategy around turn 6.
Yeah, and the focused ones that are still trying to narrow it specifically on creature beats, like we're talking, you're playing the creatures that are, you're in Endrace Forerunner kind of territory thing.
Yes.
You're either doing the go wide token thing on purpose, or you're doing the big tall monsters, Zakama Primal Calamities and Surak the Hunt Callers, bigger slivers, the combat focused sliver deck, things like that. Melee, Myriad, and dragons, I think would actually probably even fall into this one specifically as well. Dragons don't really do a lot of combo-y wins, but they still stay like they're a stronger archetype when it would come to tribal, I'd say.
Yeah, completely agree.
Yeah.
Budget, you're probably between $200 and $400 for something that's going to be focused. Also, something I'm noticing as we go up the tier list and as we're talking about different commanders for this is we're getting more and more linear as we go up. So like you're going to win more games if you have a strategy that wins the game and the cards in your deck are getting you towards that strategy. As we start going down the list, closer to C or D tier, it's way less linear. It's way more randomized. You're going to have significantly different games every time, which tutors and really good card advantage. What those do is those enable linear strategies really well. So like you could put Demonic Tutor in a D tier list. It's not going to be the best card in the deck because
it's wild if you do that.
Yeah. For sure.
It's totally
this
crazy.
This is what I've found is like the cards that you put in your deck have to be in the correct tier as well. Like if you have a $25 deck and then you just throw a Demonic Tutor in it, that's not going to get you significantly more win percentage than it would in a B or an A tier deck.
That card is basically just draw a card.
Yeah, it's draw the best card in your deck. And if the rest of the cards in your deck aren't that good or don't synergize that well, then it's kind of useless. And you might as well just have a divination in there and draw 2 cards instead.
Yeah.
So,
Read the Bones. Strictly better Demonic Tutor.
We love Read the Bones here.
You heard it here first.
Yeah. So that's your B tier. Is probably $200 to $400 ish. A tier is where we start talking about cEDH. So this is our competitive tier. You're looking at turn 3 to 5, where you're trying to have your game-winning state set up. So what's required for that is really fast mana. You have to be playing your Mana Vaults, your Mana Crypts, your Moxes, anything like that would allow you to have a game-winning state set up by turn 3 or 4.
Well, not Moxes. Moxes are banned.
Sorry, I'm talking about like
the Moxes that are still
and
right.
Mox Pearl, Mox
not
Diamond,
the Power
Mox Amber.
9 Moxen, but the less than Power 9 Moxen.
Yes, if you consult the Google Doc.
We'll talk about the Google Doc in a sec, Jarrett.
They're there.
Shut up about the Google Doc. Okay, so yeah, you're probably running 4 to 5 tutors in this. This is your Mystic Tutor, your Enlightened Tutors, your Demonic Tutors, like all of those ones are in these decks. The absolute best of the best advantage. So you're running Rhystic, Mystic, and Sentinel. Rhystic Study, Mystic Remora, and Esper Sentinel are 3 of the best card advantage, and those exist exclusively in A tier. If you're playing those, you're playing against A tier, and if the rest of your deck doesn't match it, you're gonna lose. So
Yeah, that's actually so true. It's kind of like the Soul Ring paradox of if you're the only person who gets their Soul Ring on turn 1 or 2, everyone dogpiles on you, and then you lose the game.
Yep, and you have to be prepared for that, which is A tier decks are prepared for that. You're running free interaction. This is your Force of Will, your Modern Horizons Force cycle. You're running Deflecting Swat, Fierce Guardianship. Any cycle where it's free interaction also immediately puts you into tier A. You're probably running a stacks or a combo win con. This is maybe controversial, but I don't think that stacks can exist anywhere below tier A.
I think I agree with you, and that's because if you're running stacks anywhere below tier A, then you're just being a really crappy person to play Magic with, because you're not trying to win. You're just trying to make sure everyone else doesn't, and that's lame as hell.
You heard it here, folks.
Like,
Y'all, who wants to sit down and play against my Golgari Treefolk deck? All right, Swamp, Soul Ring, Winter Orb.
Pass. Right. Yeah,
like, we touched on this a little bit in our last episode on Mill, but I think stacks came up a little bit somehow. Unless I'm totally misremembering everything.
I remember
here.
We talked about Smokestack.
Yeah. So yeah, there is nothing inherently wrong with stacks as an archetype or a styled play. There is something inherently wrong if you're just like, I'm going to play every stacks piece that I can get my hands on in blue-white, but I'm not going to put any win cons in my deck. Like, that's stupid.
Yeah.
Because the problem is no one's going to be able to interact with you because you're running all the stacks pieces.
Looking out there at all of you Grand Arbiter Augustin the Fourth players.
Dude, okay.
You know who you are.
Dude, talk about it, Jared.
So I was that person. I can talk about this
Mono
passionately.
Red Torolf being a Staxy boy? What changed?
So
hey, Jared's a man of range.
Yeah, dude, I got it. So there was a point back when I was really getting into Commander a couple of years ago. I built a Grand Arbiter deck, kind of like when you first discover there's other ways to win the game situation, you try to do it. I was like, oh, that's interesting. I've never experimented with restricting my opponent's play as a way to gain advantage in this game. And so I was looking around for commanders that did that, and I'm like, oh, Grand Arbiter seems really good at this. And he is. And everyone that played against that deck absolutely despised it. And it wasn't because I would just always win. It's because those games would just last forever because there was no actual win con in that deck, but there was an absolute crap load of stacks pieces. Like everything that I could get my hands on that had your opponent has to pay X more amount of mana to do the thing they were going to do. I had it. Like, it was basically the whole deck was just Grand Arbiters. Like, every single card was like that.
Right. And then what do? Swing with your Grand Arbiter to win?
No, because you don't want him to die. Like, I know that your cards would only cost 9 extra mana to play now if he died, but like, I can't have that. They have to cost 10. So
look, for what it's worth, though, Arbiter is a fantastic Voltron target. Just throwing that out there, making your blue white auras cost 2 less,
and sort of protecting himself as well.
So
right, John,
I've never
I need you to write up a Grand Arbiter Voltron list for me.
Give it the old salvation that it needs, because that man has sinned. That man has sinned.
Absolve him.
Yeah, so stacks are fine, but yeah, if you're playing them in anything below a competitive level, which is decks that are actively trying to win the game, so the stacks pieces aren't just going to be there making everyone play a 3-hour game of Commander, like, then it's cool. But yeah, if you're not optimized, if you're not trying to win quickly, then you're just doing it wrong. and you should
Yeah.
just play something different.
I would say, like, as a general rule, blending these tiers together is a pretty bad idea. Like, if you're trying to play A tier cards in a C tier deck, it's going to be a bad time for you and for your table. It's actually, I would say, it's more honoring to your play group and your own time and everybody else's time if you stick to a tier and you go, I'm going to build a B tier deck that's really focused, that I'm going to play against my playgroups B tier decks. When we all decide that this is the type of game that we want to play, we're going to play these decks against each other. Or if we all decide that we want to play A tier against each other and we all want to play cEDH against each other, it's going to be a better time, even though they're wildly different games. I feel like we experienced this the last time that we streamed, where we went in and we said, all right, competitive first, guys. And we blasted out of the game in 15 minutes and it was super fun. And then we were like, okay, now we're going to play our microbrews against each other, $25 decks.
That was a crazy swing.
And it was a blast. It was amazing. Like, both of those games were equally fun. And I think a huge part of that, and the reason why we're having this conversation today, is because we talked about it beforehand. And we all made a decision on what we wanted out of the games before we even started shuffling our decks up against each other. But I think the biggest thing that people need to start being transparent about is the budget of their decks.
Yeah.
I think that would make a huge difference, where, like, if I sat down with my $200 Abdul Adrian, red, white, blink deck, and the guy across the table or the stranger that I'm playing with at the shop would disclose to me that he was playing a $1,200 cEDH deck, even though it had a kind of non-traditional, general or face commander for it, then I would grab Tivit instead. Like, I wouldn't try to play a B tier deck against an A tier deck because I'm going to have a bad time. I'm going to get butt hurt and I'm going to get steamrolled. And it's going to lead to somebody who might have ended up being a good friend or somebody who I'd want to add into our play group. I'm now like, well, they're not being really honest with me, and they're not being, they're undervaluing decks. They're, this is not someone who I want to play with again. And sometimes that leads to, like, I don't really want to come to this shop again. And now we aren't supporting our local communities. It's just, be transparent with each other.
Yeah,
and then the game dies because you decided to play Grand Arbiter Augustin.
It's on Jared. It's Jared's fault.
Magic is dead because of you.
Oh God! So I picked off Torolf instead, and now my life is better. Play mono red.
Yeah. The greatest form of stacks is killing the entire game.
Yeah.
So that nobody can ever play it ever again.
Dedoy.
I'd like to imagine
you just win faster. It's the opposite of stacks.
I'd like to imagine the meme template of, like, the dominoes going up, where, like, at the bottom is Grand Arbiter Augustin, and at the very end of that is ended up with Secret Later 30th Anniversary Edition.
Yes.
Everything has stemmed from stacks.
This is the timeline that we're on.
Oh
this is my multiverse of madness.
Yeah. I think we've covered most of everything pretty well without diving into, like, some pretty extreme nuance here. Yeah.
Do you guys just want to, like, toss about back and forth some specific examples and see, like, where we compare each other on those types of cards? Because, like, I feel like there is some very weird variance that, like, people could think like one type of card is extremely powerful and somebody else could think that card is complete trash.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
This kind of brings up a paradox of cards like Dockside Extortionist, where what Magic has been doing is they've been designing these cards that scale with the power level of your playgroup. Because Dockside Extortionist in a C tier or even a B tier deck is not nearly as good as it is in an A tier deck. Doesn't mean it's a bad card, and it doesn't mean you shouldn't play it in your mono red deck. That's like, Jared, you play a Dockside in Torolf. I
do. And so I might have undersold Torolf earlier. What I should ask you guys what you think Torolf on the traditional 1 to 10 scale is, what it would be.
On the traditional 1 to 10?
Yes.
Honestly, probably a 7. And again, this is where we get like.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
But I think it's solidly a B tier deck.
Yes.
Like, I don't think it's questionable that it's a B tier deck. And anything
Right.
that I have that I would assess as a B tier deck, I would feel comfortable playing against Torolf.
100%.
And feeling like I could hold my own. Like, anything that has interaction and I can keep Torolf off the table, I'm going to be fine. Because otherwise you're just board wipe tribal.
Exactly. Yeah. It's very easy to, like, full transparency. I think the fastest I've won with that deck is turn 5, 4 or 5, something like that.
Because you have to have Torolf out. It's a combo.
That's
deck.
fast, but yes, you have to have Torolf, and that's in a game where literally I just played my cards and no one did anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's know what? Most decks will win if that's your scenario.
Right.
Joseph, what turn was that I beat your Tivit with Slicer the other day?
Turn 3.
That was turn 3? All right.
Turn 3. Slicer is an A tier mono red deck.
Yeah, Slicer is
unbelievable. Sick. But the thing is, I knew that going into it because we talked about it.
Right.
And I knew that I could only play my only A tier deck, which is Tivit, against that to have a chance at winning. And then you didn't even end up winning that game. You just took me out. Like,
true. But then, so let me bring you an interesting paradox on that then. Yeah. Slicer has the capability of knocking out players as fast as turn 3, turn 4. Deck costs under $60.
That's amazing.
Right.
So
that's like, again, the tier system is a template. It's not gospel. It's not a like set in stone thing. So like, yeah, there are exceptions to every rule. You can have a $60 deck that competes at A tier, because if you reference one of the other things, what turn, John, would you say that you're trying to set up your game winning strategy in Slicer?
Oh, for Slicer, at least by turn 2. Because once blockers start coming down, then even with double strike, Slicer's bad.
100%. So now you've met up with one of the conditions for A tier, which is by turn 3 to 5, you're assembling your game winning state. You have some really good interaction in that deck. You're playing cards like Jeska's Will, which is, I would say, some of the best advantage that you get in red.
Mm-hmm. It is.
Red's not a big advantage color, but
right.
It's definitely the best like card draw advantage situation in red.
Right.
It is bar none that card. I can confidently say this. Every single cEDH deck that has red in it is going to play Jeska's Will, because it's just a great card. It essentially draws you 3 cards and makes you a lot of mana. And with the Dockside situation, as we were saying, like, I play Dockside in Torolf, and it doesn't make it overpowered because it's going against decks that are all like B tier decks where no one's playing Mana Crypts or any of the crazy, like, we're playing Soul Ring, Arcane Signet, but those might as well be the other 2 commanders of every commander deck. They're in everything. So it's not worth really even talking about those. But as far as all the other fast mana, no one in our pod plays that stuff. And that's when Dockside gets amazing, is everyone's got 3, 4, 5 artifacts by turn 2 or 3, and then Dockside comes out and makes like 15 treasures. Like, that's why Dockside gets broken. He is actually, I keep saying he. I don't mean to be gendering that card for no reason. Dockside is like a totally fine card at every single tier of play that it's at. Yeah. Which is, like, to me, is like a great argument for why Dockside should not be banned. Like,
right.
The reason it feels problematic is because people are probably encountering it in situations where someone isn't being fully transparent about the way their deck runs. Mm-hmm. And then they get hit with a crazy Dockside.
Right. Because if you're playing Dockside in an A tier deck, it's probably slightly better than Wily Goblin. Like, slightly.
Yeah.
I've seen a Dockside that you've played make 3 treasures.
It's like more than 50% of the time I've played it in our pod, Dockside has broken even or netted me like maybe 1 or 2 extra treasures.
Right.
Like
now that I'm not playing my Mishra deck.
right. Well, obviously,
Yeah.
yes. If if there's an artifact deck in play that totally changes things, but that's something you have to keep in mind when you're playing artifacts.
Yep.
Like
That's the risk you run.
Dockside exists, and you just have to know that. So
does Vandal Blast.
exactly.
But anyway, we're getting quite off topic here, but let's wrap up and just maybe we can just give some templates on how to have these kinds of conversations pre-game, because it has changed how much I enjoy playing Commander. So, John, Jared, thoughts?
John, you want to take this one first, or I can? Doesn't matter.
No, go ahead. Yeah, because like, I mean, I don't know. It's like all this is like it makes logical sense to sort of like evaluate and let people know what kind of strategy you are attempting to play, but people view especially their own decks, and sometimes people are just straight up oblivious to the sort of overall power and cost of some of their cards, right? Like I could say I've stumbled into stuff that I didn't realize was crazy expensive or had game-winning combos in and amongst themselves. Sometimes you just find these things accidentally, and like you're not inherently trying to lie to people about how strong your deck is, but when you accidentally stumble into an infinite that you didn't realize your deck can do, then how do you justify that? Which you say, oh, this was just my, upgraded precon, and oops, Marin accidentally comboed out of the graveyard I didn't realize she could do. You know what I mean? Or when you where do you take non-infinite loops into this new account,
Oh, true.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean
something that's repeatable but not infinite.
I think I don't know if it necessarily matters as long as it leads to you winning.
And sometimes it doesn't. And they're like the system as a whole, there are loopholes and corner cases. You can't please everyone,
Right.
Everybody's you get 4+ people into a group, there's always that, the joke of like 9 out of 10 dentists, someone's going to disagree. Someone's going to disagree with what you're playing. You know what I mean?
Right. That is the beauty of this format is there is 4 opponents all simultaneously trying to win instead of just 1 versus 1.
I would say for both infinite and non-infinite combos, it matters what turn it's happening on. If it's turn 16 and it's taken you 3 cards that all need to be not interacted with to have your combo go off, bully for you, that's probably C tier or B tier. But if your infinite combo is on turn 5, that's A tier. Even a non-infinite combo where you've locked somebody out of the game on turn 5, turn 6, that's A tier for sure.
My Derevi deck, we discovered in the last time we were playing it that there's a certain board state I can get to where I can tap down everyone's lands before they get to their main phase.
Yep.
And they just can't play.
Yeah.
And I haven't won yet, but you might as well scoop to that because you literally can't interact with anything I'm doing. But that is the strongest deck I have. It is like on a traditional 1 to 10 scale, it'd be a 9 or a 10. It is definitely in the A tier, solidly. That deck list is absolutely stacked. The train of thought that Joseph you had earlier about when cards kind of punch above their power level in a deck, getting worse. That I found that to be super true because there's a lot of things that are really strong against really strong stuff that just kind of fold in a more casual environment, or like cards that just straight up become dead in a more casual environment. It's like I have this card in my hand, I'm not going to cast it the whole game because this situation's not coming up. But as far as like having the rule zero conversation of like what tier or power level is your deck playing at, be honest with each other. We've all probably been in those situations where someone was just trying to pull a fast one on you. That feels terrible. That's part of why we're all talking about this today. We've been in that seat and that sucks. Be honest. Everyone's going to have a better time when you're all playing at the same power level. You don't want to be like the high schooler on the basketball court with 6-year-olds. That's stupid. That's lame. Go play with people your own size, essentially. Yeah. So talk about what turn you can win on, and obviously if you're playing a stacks deck, that's a different conversation. Be honest about that. Like, your deck isn't trying to win as fast as possible. It's trying to grind out the win.
You don't even have to say like, this is my strategy or these are the cards you can just say, yeah, I'm playing combos, tutors, and stacks.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to go, great. Don't want to see what it is. Let's play the game. I know at least what I'm getting towards. Like,
yeah.
And then you don't put yourself in a position where you have to play against that person 5 or 6 times before realizing, oh, this is their strategy. And now I can start winning against it.
I think talking about turn of win con, talking about fast mana, to me, fast mana is pretty much the number one indicator of, is this deck really freaking strong or is it casual? And that's why my Toralf deck is a 7, because I don't run any of that fast mana in there. It could be a different story if that was there. It's never going to be Magda good, but
True.
Different story. But yeah, so fast mana, like the super expensive, like shock, fetch, OG dual lands, those are obviously going to be indicators of this deck is really powerful. I've spent literally thousands of dollars on the mana base to make this work. So it better be at this point. Just overall, like, how fast does it win? What kind of rocks you running, if any? Are you tutoring? Do you have a focused way to win the game?
Mm-hmm. What's on the menu for this game? Tutors? Yeah. Is it divinations? What are we talking about?
And you don't have to give away all your secrets. You don't have to telegraph everything that you're doing in that rule zero conversation. But honesty is a great policy. And Commander's no exception to that rule, especially in a casual environment. If you're like really out there sweating in a casual environment, you should try cEDH and still change your attitude.
I think I was gonna mention, I think like sometimes at like a hurdle, and I'm guilty of this sometimes in decks as well, a hurdle that I think players from passing from being precon upgrades to like knowing and willing to want to play beyond that point. The hurdle to jump over is to not stay starstruck onto what a commander strategy is all about, Yes. Fill your deck with some of the cool cards you want to play, but learn when you need to change things out to adjust, I know telling people, oh, just tweak your deck every week is like, some people just don't like to hear that.
No.
And I'm guilty of that. I have, vault locked a deck away for years. Didn't change anything about it. And it's like, I still want to play this. This is fun and cool. And then you lead into the situation where you think your deck is at one level, but you're trying to play it up against people who are 3 years advanced on you in sets and knowledge and stuff like that. And then it becomes overwhelming to find the specific new pieces that are better for your deck. So I think a lot of people try to like plant their feet in one deck type and not upgrade it, not change it. And they get sucked, like, slowly over time that deck starts going backwards in scale.
In power level.
Yes, in power level, right.
Yeah.
Ooh, I'm going to addendum tier B and below and say that if your win con exclusively relies on your commander being in play, that is B tier and below. You cannot be A tier and your only win con is your commander existing.
I'm going to disagree with you.
Oh, okay.
There are
Toralf player.
Well, not.
Well, I would say that's why Toralf isn't A tier,
right?
Because you can't really win without it.
That deck is specifically weak because of that situation. There are ways to win without it, but it's dramatically more difficult. But just because of some cEDH examples. So Magda, another mono red cEDH deck, has to have Magda out to win. Also, Godo, another mono red cEDH. I'm sensing a theme with mono red.
You're sensing a theme here, Jared.
So
this is why I think this is why we don't see a ton of mono red cEDH.
Yeah, true. But Godo is like, it's a 2-card combo where one of the combo pieces sits in your command zone, which is crazy strong. So if you know what you're doing, you can definitely win a lot. But those are both like very powerful cEDH decks where the commander has to be on the board to win the game.
Right.
And otherwise it's not happening. I know there's probably others, but I'm not thinking of any right now. Maybe there's not. Maybe I'm just like blowing smoke right now. But those are 2 cEDH examples. So I think saying that all decks that rely on the commander that heavily are B tier and below isn't quite right. I would say it's right most of the time.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's plenty enough for a template for me.
Yeah.
I love it. My closing thoughts, I would say, this entire episode, this entire conversation is out the window if you're paying for an event or if there are prizes involved. If you're doing something that is competitive at whatever level, whether it's a proxy game or whether it's a budget league or something, don't have this conversation with anybody. This is exclusively for you're playing a casual commander pod with your buddies or with strangers at a store on a commander night, and this will just help you have some more fun and have some different and maybe better games. I would also say that if your group decides that you don't want to talk about it, that's fine too. This is part of the whole rule. I mean, the rule 0 is just house rules. Discuss your house rules first. And if everybody's comfortable with, we're going to just grab a deck and shuffle it, and then we all see what everyone else is playing, amazing. Then, it's all just about making sure that your entire group is comfortable with what's happening so that nobody's walking away about anything.
Yeah. It's like, at the end of the day, no matter what power level commander is happening at, it is a group experience. You take the 1v1 aspect out of it when you start playing in this format, and it becomes a group experience. Because of that, it's the responsible thing to do to try and at least make sure everyone is having fun. So, yeah, if you're taking actions that are limiting other people's fun, as long as you are approaching it from the correct perspective of like what that certain style of gameplay is supposed to think fun is, like if you're contradicting that somehow, that's where you're totally in the wrong, and you should try to fix that.
Yeah.
Be better.
So be better, do better, be transparent.
Don't suck. Be better. Yeah.
I love it.
You guys want that on a t-shirt?
Yeah.
Don't
put
it in the comments.
Suck.
Don't suck. Have you tried being better?
It's the classic get good.
Yeah.
Losing like, too much?
Get good. Went to college.
I love it. Can I throw you guys on the spot for some budget brewery?
I knew you were going to do that. I freaking knew you were going to do that. And I still didn't prepare one.
Budget brewery. Let's go real quick. Lightning round. John?
Yeah, Lightning Brewery. All right. This is a silly newer card that I've been playing in my Aloro deck, which probably would be considered A tier, but this is like one of the few my C tier cards. It's in there because we can have some janky fun shenanigans with it. Let me tell you about the board state messing up card called Mirror Weave.
Ooh.
What?
Mirror Weave. It is 2 and 2 hybrids of Azorius mana, so castable by either for like 2 white, 2 blue, or a hybrid mix of the two of them. So it's an Azorius card. It's an instant. Each other creature becomes a copy of target non-legendary creature until end of turn.
Dude, this sounds so fun.
Oh.
Holy crap.
So originally from Shadowmoor, it's been in a few precon decks. One, at least, anyway. It's been in at least one precon decks. there is just some janky, silly fun you can have at instant speed when someone is trying to pull off a big, like, token setup, or they're trying to do something with activated ability costs on creatures, or a combination of big, powerful legendary creatures in play. Yeah, you have you ever board wiped into all creatures being Blood Artist?
That's
Now
insane.
Oh, that sounds incredible.
Oh
Have
my-
you ever moved to
Oh.
combat? Have you ever moved to combat where all of your creatures are non-legendaries with Myriad?
Oh my god.
Now you can.
It's
Oh.
insane.
What?
Oh my god. That's
Have
fun.
you ever gone to blockers where everything is Ripjaw Raptor? Now you can draw all the cards.
We
like-
all deck ourselves because we'd swung.
So, I have the funniest one I've ever done with this is I have had an equal state of creatures attacking into me where I, like, both of us had the same amount of creatures. I mirror weaved and turned everything into High Priest of Penance. You can imagine everything got blown up from there. High Priest of Penance is a Orzhov colored, I believe he's,
when it
I
gets
believe,
damaged, you destroy target permanent.
Yep.
Wow.
He's a human advisor. When he's dealt damage, destroyed permanent. So all the attackers swinging into me got turned into High Priest of Penance. All of my blockers got turned into High Priest of Penance. You can imagine the
Bow, bow.
bang, bang. Yeah. Just to be quick on it, honestly, like, it's situational. Like, it's the same kind of, like, diminished down attackers, you know, stuff like Polymorphous Jest and what's the black one that does that with split second? Sudden spoiling, that one. You know, a big massive thing that you can turn a huge slew of attackers your way into dinky 1/1s. It turns your own creatures into dinky 1/1s as well, but sometimes you can just do some really silly things by turning all the big dumb idiot slivers into elves.
True. All right, so mine. What if I told you that there was a 3-mana sorcery that let you do Demonic Tutor 7/8 of the time for 4 cents? Let me introduce you to Demonic Bargain. 2 and a black. Exile the top 13 cards of your library. Search your library for a card. Put it into your hand. Statistically, the way that works is 7 out of 8 times you're going to find the card that you're looking for. And 1 out of those 8 times, you're going to exile it. Good enough for me. It's not an A tier card, but it's a B tier card for sure. I would want to play Demonic Bargain in almost every black deck that I play in B tier.
And
Yeah.
that downside can be mitigated if you're already doing redundancy.
Right.
You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
if you have 2 copies of the thing that you're looking for, like if you have a Laboratory Maniac and a Thassa's Oracle, and that one Jace that does the same thing, if you're just trying to find one of those, Demonic Bargain is going to work 99% of the time to find it for 4 cents. So if you're looking to take your deck maybe from C tier to B tier for 4 cents, Demonic Bargain's a great include.
So true.
Jared, take us home.
I think I was looking through my Budget Brews deck, and for some reason I don't think it's in here, but the Spinning Wheel Kick. That
Fire.
that card is sick. I have been playing with that card on Arena a lot, and it's really fun. Yeah, it's let me read it off to you. I need to actually like pull it up here. Goodness.
It's offhand, it's green XX sorcery.
Correct.
Target creature deals damage equal to its power to X target creatures you don't control.
X target creatures and or planeswalkers.
And or
but
planeswalkers.
you
Darn it,
had it
very
almost
close.
90.
Modern
yeah.
Magic curses.
So it's 4 mana, take out 1 thing based on your creature's power. 6 mana, take out 2 things. 8 mana, take out 3 things. Seems
Yeah.
good to me. in a ramp deck or in anything where you're trying to get big mana going, like strong.
It's really good too when you pair this with Death Touch. That's where this shines.
Yes.
That's the deck I play this in on Arena. The commander gives everything Death Touch when it's tapped and Hexproof when it's untapped. I forget the name of it, but yeah, it's
John.
What's that?
It's a
What's
green.
the name of the card?
It's a mono green thing. It's a snake. Yeah, this is so funny.
When it's tapped, everything has Death Touch. When it's untapped, everything.
Oh, it's a human. Seraph of the Viper Fang.
Yeah, that's the one.
Seraph of the Viper Fang. 2 green, human.
1 point for the Oracle.
Human warlock, I want to say, or human shaman, I think. Untapped creatures have hexproof. Tapped creatures have Death Touch. 1 tap, untap another target creature.
Yeah, so this is sick. Yeah, you pair it with Death Touch and you just shoot everything you don't like. It's awesome. I love that. I love spot removal that turns into more than one thing. That's kind of a running gag with my deck building, I think. I've noticed. I love when a single target spell becomes way more powerful than that. So yeah, nice. It's a sick card. It's super cheap.
Yeah, it's probably pennies.
It's literally 7 cents. So yeah, it's sick.
That's Budget Brewery, baby.
There we go.
Well, awesome, guys. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for talking with us. We'll see you guys next time. I think next time we record, we'll be able to do reviews of the Commander Masters pre-cons, because that spoiler season's going on right now. By the next time that we're recording and putting out the episode, next one is going to be Commander Master pre-cons. Thanks for watching. We talked about it earlier. Join the Discord, like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff, yada yada.
Yeah. Let us know if you like our tier system instead of the number system. I like it way better. It's just way better. It's better.
Or comment below how wrong we are. Joseph
loves hearing how wrong I am.
He loves constructive criticism.
We do. All right.
But only Joseph.
That's right. Don't come after either of them. Yeah. I'm the pariah. All right. We'll see you guys next time.